Hello everyone, my name is Kyle, and this is going to be my very first movie review, and it is the beginning of October, so I am going to be talking about what is not necessarily a scary movie by chance, but a very frightening and suspenseful one. Let's get going. Cloverfield was directed by Matt Reeves and stars a few familiar faces, and also a Blake Lively knockoff, and that one asshole character from Army of the Dead. One of the things that sets this movie apart from a lot of other found footage films is its clever use of the camera feed that we see, and particularly in the beginning, because it cuts between the film we're currently watching and some old camera footage of some characters that we're eventually going to meet, and it gives some quick backstory to help us get invested into these characters and the eventual situation that they're going to be caught in. Another thing that helps really get us invested in these characters, at least for me, is that when they're at this party, they're talking to all these friends, and then they're having all these like very, very grounded conversations that you probably might have had with your friends, about their relationships, about their, past, friendships that they've had, the things that they've done, saying that they're gonna miss them. It's just simple stuff that just makes these characters feel very real, and you can grow attached to them, you can relate to them. So those things really help set up this movie to make it seem like it's a very believable and tangible film that you're watching. It's not actually just acting, it's actually just very organic. It feels actually like it's actually happening, and you're witnessing something that literally happened. It grounds it in reality. And that's perfect because whenever shit starts hitting the fan, you're really in the moment and you're really fearing for all of these characters, and you're in it. You're in it with them. Another benefit that this film really takes from using the found footage formula is when all the destruction starts, it really gives this like grand spectacle of everything that's happening. And it's all the stuff, all the destruction is really reminiscent of those all that footage that you've seen from 9/11, and it sort of makes that much more frightening because it's also, again, even though it's like just like grand scale destruction, the fact that you're watching it from a human level, you're down on the ground with these characters, and it's not these wide shots over the city and you see this big monster and all these freaking chaotic things happening. No, you're just with this group this entire time, and that just makes it seem all the more real and all the more frightening and terrifying and huge. Even the small moments in this film are absolutely gut-wrenchingly horrifying to witness. And back on the topic of 9/11, there's also this really great shot after the characters are trapped into this gas station after all this destruction outside is going on, and they walk back outside, and you just see all these people just walking along the street, just caked in dust. You can hardly see like maybe 10 feet in front of you. And it really reminds me more of that footage of you seen with people from back in 9/11 after one of the towers collapsed. So yeah, the way they handle that footage and the way they get these shots and the way they decide to show you these events happening, it is really harrowing and insanely believable because it feels so familiar. Another smart thing to do is not showing you so much of the monster. It's a really good idea to keep you guessing or sort of keep you in the dark as to what exactly it is that you're dealing with in the film, because once you like see, it's like a scare. Once that it gets really quiet and all of a sudden you get that big booming noise and there's something jumps out, after that point you have this release and you're just like, oh, okay. But whenever it's just constantly dragging you along and that suspense is just constantly building, it never lets you go and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. That works the same way with revealing the monster, and in not showing so much of it, it keeps you on the edge of your seat in terms of not knowing what these characters are dealing with, and that curiosity helps to keep you engaged because you eventually want to see this thing. There's also an effective use of downtime in this movie, particularly when all our characters get trapped in a subway and it's very quiet, and we see one of our main characters on the phone with a family member, and it just gets really silent for a second, and he tells a family member that he lost his brother, and there's just this very brief pause before he just starts breaking down, and it really hammers home that emotion and the tragedy of the current situation that they're in. Also, a little later in the movie, there is this moment where our characters run into all these military officers who are trying to handle all the injured. And every time I see this, this really disturbs me. So they're in a very frantic discussion with all these military people. And the camera suddenly just pans over to one of our characters who has been bit by one of the creatures. And she is just pale as a ghost. She's bleeding from her eyes and from her nose. She says she's not feeling good. And all of a sudden, one of the nurses there just starts freaking out and says, we got a bite. And they start dragging her away. Everyone is yelling. And they just bring her into this back room. And you don't see what's going on. But there's just this huge splatter of blood. And it happens so suddenly and so out of nowhere. Even though you know that she got bit and you know she's not doing too well, you didn't expect this to actually happen. And it was really quite horrifying to witness, especially when it just comes out of nowhere without any warning. The character who's working the camera runs into an Asian man. He starts muttering something under his voice, and for a second I thought he was gonna mention that they're all running from Godzilla or something like that. I couldn't help but think that, Asian man, big monster, wreaking havoc. You put two and two together, that's just where my brain went. There is one moment in this movie that kind of had me thinking, and I wasn't sure if this was intentional but there's a moment in the beginning of the movie where our main character Rob is showing up at his party. The party quiets down, they turn the music off because they're gonna surprise him, and not but 1 second later he walks in and they surprise him and he's acting all surprised. I assume acting because I couldn't help but think, did he not hear all that loud music and those people talking on the other side of that door before he walked in? I couldn't help but imagine that. But all in all, guys, I have a lot of fun watching this movie. It's a great found footage film. It keeps a consistent pace. The camera work isn't constantly giving you a splitting headache. And the performances, while nothing to write home about, do keep you engaged, and I have a lot of fun with this movie. It's going to be an A- on my grade scale. It's going to be a 4 out of 5 stars, and definitely buy this on physical media. But of course, I would love to hear all your opinions on this movie. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you somewhere in the middle? Please share all your opinions down below. Keep the conversation friendly. And also stay tuned for some more videos in the future, because all throughout the month of October, it is the Halloween season, and I am going to be talking about a lot of scary movies, and I'm really looking forward to that. Once again, my name is Kyle. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you all in the next video.